Are you a traveling dad whose job often takes you to one location while your family remains behind in another? If so, my husband and I have a special message for you, so stay put. I'm Sharoya Ham. I'm a behavior change specialist, parent coach, a mom of three, and a wife of one lovely man for just about 25 years. Throughout our marriage, we have had our share of challenges due to the traveling nature of his job. A few weeks ago, I was on a podcast being interviewed by Rhoda Bangerter, and she is the host of Holding the Fort Down. During this interview, I was sharing some strategies of what parents can do when they are separated and how they can be one family in two locations. But after the podcast interview, I had this burning desire to make a special video for traveling dads. And I'm calling it a love letter to traveling dads. I often work with families who are in two locations, but surely they are one family. And I know how difficult it is for the implementing parent to stay behind and implement the things, the schedule, the chores, and all the other demands from day to day. But I also know in talking to many traveling dads that it is tough on them to balance that workload and meeting the needs of their family in another location. And so today I've asked my husband to join me to create this love letter to you. And so I want to take a moment right now to bring him on in and let him introduce himself. He is a traveling dad and the father of our three sons. Hun, come on in and introduce yourself.
Thank you, babe. It's an honor and pleasure to be able to speak on your podcast. And let me say thank you for um, involving me in this project. Like you, it's always been a passion for me to be able to collaborate with you on some symposium. And this seems ideal and beneficial for families to be able to share our experiences as a couple, as a married couple. My name is James Ham. I'm a veteran, a diplomat, a U.S. Foreign Service government employee for over 34 years. I am the husband of the magnificent Sharoya Miles Ham. I've been married going on 25 years and dating even longer. And yes, we are the proud parents of three wonderful sons, ages 25, 21, and 19. It has been a tremendous journey of love and sacrifice. And I'm honored to be able to sit here and share some of our experiences on how we adjusted and navigated some of the difficult times through a balance of family life and work life, and raising our sons in this space of being abroad and living abroad and being away from each other at times. So thank you, Sharoya, for involving me in this project.
Oh, thank you. I'm really excited because, as you said, this is our first time working together. And so I asked you about a month ago to help me with this project. And I really want to know, why did you say yes?
Well, I figure if I didn't say yes, the consequences of the outcome would have been worse than uh, not doing it. But you know,
I
and
ought
I
to
know.
hit you with this right now.
You know, and I know that this has been our journey, our story, our sacrifice, and God has been in the midst of all of this. And it's like a testimony. You have a story, you have an experience that you want to share with people, and so that there are people out there who know that they're not doing this alone or they haven't experienced this alone. And so I'm happy to be able to share our journey.
I want to ask you a few questions about your journey and learning how to balance your work demands while making sure, our relationship, my relationship with you, your relationship with the kids didn't suffer. And so I'm going to ask you a few questions about that. And then after, I want to share with our traveling dads who are listening some practical ways that things they can do to strengthen the bonds between themselves and their spouses and their children. All right, so let's get
Sure.
started.
All right.
All right, so my first question for you is, when you were away from us, away from your family, what were some of your concerns?
Oh, wow. Good question. There's always that concern of, is the family doing okay? Is there not too much stress on my wife? Are the kids behaving themselves? Who's helping them out with homework? Who's going to do those dad responsibilities that while I'm not there? Is my wife going to be able to balance both? Are we going to have to call grandma to come and be there with them for a little while to make sure that they are everything's being taken care of? There were a lot of questions, especially role and responsibilities that, me as a man, as a father, that I know that it's my responsibility at home. And not being there for extended periods of time, you wonder how all that's gonna be carried out in your absence. And sometimes, that absence is not something that we all signed up for, especially our kids. But we have to find ways to be able to make sure that that continuity of support and continuation of family operations, so to speak, continues. So there was always a lot of worries, always a lot of concerns. And some of those things, they're natural, but you wonder how that's gonna happen, but or be substituted for. And yeah, so those always were a part of my just concern and worry while being away from you.
Thank you for sharing that, because I have to say to you that I don't think I ever thought about you being concerned for us. I mean, of course, you care for us, but I didn't think it was like you were really thinking, are we safe? Whether I was overwhelmed. I mean, you would check in surely, but I don't think I thought from the day to day that you were actually concerned. And in working with moms also who have husbands who are traveling, what I've learned is we really don't quite understand the burden you dads feel when you're away from the family. It's almost kind of like we think, well, you're enjoying your job, you're enjoying the adventure. Yes, you care about us, but the day to day, you're not really feeling the amount of stress or that emotional burden that the implementing parent seems to have. And so I really appreciate that, helping us as women to understand, moms to understand that dads do have this weight of worry about how their family is doing when they're not there. And so
I can't tell you, if I can just jump in, I
Sure.
can't tell you how many times I couldn't sleep in my hotel room. I couldn't focus at a meeting because I'm checking my phone just to make sure that any calls, any messages, um, hopefully no alarms, um, were going to be waiting for me. And I, you know, being present is one thing. Being absent and absent without responding is another. And so there was always that worry of, okay, is Shirley going to call me with something that's going on with the kids, or do they want to talk to me right now? I would be happy to steal away from a meeting, a conversation, or a cocktail just to be able to have that conversation with you or our sons while I was away. And I was always standing by to be able to use that excuse to say, hey, I got to check in with my family for a minute.
You know, that's interesting because I think many of the women, the wives, the implementing partner, I don't want to be sexist here because many dads also stay back and they are the ones who are implementing. But for this conversation, I want to talk about our experience. And I think many times I felt like I didn't want to disturb you. And here I'm hearing that you actually wanted to be aware of what was going on at home. And
Absolutely.
so, yeah, I commend dads who are in this position, and I would encourage dads to even express that because, hon, if I had known that, I think I may have, called you more often and not felt like I was being a burden or intruding on your work time. So thank you for sharing that. Now I want to move on to my other question, and that is, did you ever feel like you were failing us as your family? Did you feel like you were failing me as your wife or the kids or the boys?
Yeah. Yeah, that's that's a tough one. And I think as for me, it's always been a struggle to be able to find the balance between work and time, quantity versus quality, and focus and unfocused time. And a lot of times I found myself doing double duty, trying to do both at once, loving my family and committing to work. And it was a hard adjustment. It continues to be. Um, Even times when we were out together or, the phone would be there and you got constant emails or communications about work, but you're not fully, you know, sacrifice or committing yourself to the quality family time that you should be giving your family and your children and your wife. And yes, so I felt like I failed on numerous events. And there's no way to make up for that. And, I was always told that you only get a chance to be a dad once. And that's always been a struggle for me. And as much as I know that my priorities, my focus, my primary focus in life is my family. And so, yes, I felt like I failed you and the boys on numerous fronts, but I can tell you that it was never, never an option for me to be able to give up.
I think you did very well in managing and balancing both. In the interview I did with Rhoda Bangerter on the Holding the Fort Abroad, I talked about one incident where I was just feeling overwhelmed and I was basically lashing out at you, which I'm sure I did many times over. Like, just feeling like you weren't feeling the pain that I was feeling, the overwhelm that I was feeling because you didn't have the kids. And now that our children are grown and we have really kind of found that space to be balanced, I look back and I think I did not see your pain. I did not see your overwhelm. And I want to apologize for that.
Well, let me say that no man, no husband, no father wants to see the members of their family suffer or cry or have to suffer because of what they're doing. And so, we're providers, we're lovers of our families, our children, and we want nothing but the best for them. And anything that we can do to try to fix it, we're going to do it because that's what we want to do. We want to keep our family together. And that's not always easy. And it's always a struggle. But like I said earlier, no man gives up. He keeps that fight going forward.
That you did. So thank you.
Mhm.
Now, I want to ask you, you talked about present, being present. And I do believe it is quite possible for traveling dads to be present, even though they're not physically present. Do you recall a time where you felt successful? We talked about failure, but that you actually felt successful, that you were able to be present with us and show up for us, even though you were not physically present.
Hmm. Thankful to technology and phones now, and Facebook, you know, and I even, fast forward this to, social media, Facebook and WhatsApp and so forth. It's very possible. I have made it a practice to be in constant contact with my sons and with you. And though our sons are attending boarding schools in the US, I make it a purpose to be involved in their lives and communicating with them on a regular basis. You may or may not know this, but I have a separate WhatsApp group, just me and the boys. And I know we have one together as a family. We have one together with the boys individually, but I have one with the boys, with three of the boys all together, just the men. And I speak regularly to them, even sometimes in the midnight hour when I'm doing coursework and you're asleep, and I'm sending them WhatsApp message of encouragement, of godly principles, of ethics and values that I want to impart upon them, just me and the boys. And I see that as important because as a father, I want to continue to pour into my sons as if I was physically there with them. And because I am not, doesn't mean that I stop. And so WhatsApp has provided me that option to be able to do that on a regular basis. And they all get the message. And they all can't say that they didn't see it, because I will follow up with them during our one-on-one calls to say, hey, did you get my message? That helps me be able to stay in touch with them, to have dialogue with them, and have, constant refocus to make sure that what I believe in, what I expect of them, what I hope in them is being well received. And that my role as a father in their lives is not diminished because I'm not physically there present.
Yeah, I would truly say that you have been exceptional in being intentional in your relationship. Even, from the time when they were little and you traveled a lot, and then now your travel has slowed down, but the flips has happened. The kids are now in the US while you are here in South Africa. And but yet you have the skills in the tools through WhatsApp to remain in contact and to be intentional in their development, not just, hi, how are you doing, but being purposeful with what you want to share. So yes, I kind of do know you have your own WhatsApp group with the boys. And it doesn't make me jealous. Really, I'm really grateful that you do. But what I was going to say is that I've noticed that in working with families, oftentimes the implementing parent is always the middle person. Like the person away is always calling them so they can talk to the kids. And I think you bring up a good point that mom should be taken out of the equation when dad wants to reach the kids. At sometimes there ought to be a direct communication, because that just makes it even more intimate between them and their children. And the kids just get to know that mom doesn't know everything that I tell dad. And I think that just is precious and needed to create that and maintain the bond between dad and children.
Well, like I said, those conversations have been intimate between the boys and I. And, they range from, hey, reminder, your mom's birthday is tomorrow. She should be getting a message and a gift. There's money in your account. The Final Four is playing, or remember to pray. Remember to keep in contact with each other as brothers. Remember that family is first. And I want those seeds of inspiration to be between father and son, between the father and my children.
And I noticed there, I want to pull out that very important point where you said that you would also tell them, like, hey, it's your mom's birthday. Be prepared to do something for her. And I want to, as I said, as we shared a little bit about your story, I want to conclude this video and love letter to encourage dads that you might have be on this moment in time in your career and fatherhood where you don't feel like you're succeeding. And we wanted to share this story with you in hopes that you felt encouraged. But now I want to switch so that you have some skills, some ideas of what you can do to actually move forward and feel successful. And how you do that is, my husband just gave the secret. Before you start really pouring into the kids, if you feel like you haven't been doing well with your relationship with them, it is important for you to invest in your spouse, to make sure your spouse is okay, because the more your wife is on track and feeling balanced, the more she pours in to the kids and doesn't feel just neglected, and the more she pours into you. And so this is very critical for traveling dads to understand, that an investment has to be made in caring for their wives. And so can you think of another way you invested? You often spoke with the kids and asked them to do things for me, which was very helpful to me because I felt seen by them, because many times I did not know you told them. So I'm thinking, oh, wow, my babies really love me. But nevertheless, it was well taken, well received, and it filled my cup and allowed me to have lighter days. So I want to understand your motivation. And did you recognize any difference in me when you really took time to make sure that I was okay, my emotional, mental health was going okay?
You're asking for an example?
Yeah, or just trying to think back and were you very cognizant of what that meant for me, or did you see a difference? Kind of what prompted you to, like in the past where I mentioned during that previous podcast, where you decided to call my friends up while you were traveling and make arrangements for them to, or have them call me and invite me to their house when you were traveling.
I recognize that I couldn't just go from day to day and then pick up my bags and say, hey, Sharoy, I got a work event and I gotta go for 4 weeks or up to a month. You leaving just like that without, pouring into you spiritually, time and investing to make sure that you're in a good place, a stable place, a safe place, to be able to uh, be strong while I'm away. You know, my 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 way of being able to have that time with you helps, strengthen you and prepare you for the time that I will be away, to be able to build, I mean, you not only as my wife, but as the mother of my children. And so, having that quality time, a couple of days or 3 days or 4 days or a week before I take off was important for me. And to be able to give you that love, that support, that confidence that we are in this together. I think that has really, been the strength that I needed to be able to go away and for you to be able to support me while I was away. If I would have left, without that time, that investment in you that you have invested in me to be able to go forward like this, it wouldn't have been possible if I didn't make those sacrifices, giving you that time.
I really appreciate that, what you just said, because what you said was that it helped me, but it also helped you. And I hope traveling dads heard that point, that investing that time before you leave, before you travel, is a confirmation or affirms both parties that we're in this together. And I think for many moms, they're willing to make sacrifices so that their spouse can go and fulfill their work responsibilities. But oftentimes, the more there's distance and there's not that intimacy, there's not time where they set aside to be together, it feels like you're doing this alone.
Mhm.
And so I really think what you just brought up in spending time with your wife before. Now, I know I said this is a love letter to traveling dads, and we really haven't talked about the kids much. And the reason why is because of what you just said. I want traveling dads to understand, because I believe many may sit in their hotel rooms and feel like, does my wife even like me? She seems to just be irritated every time I call. And so you're chuckling. So come on, tell me what happened? What made you just chuckle?
Well, I can recall, just a few conversations where you were experiencing probably some challenges. I don't want to call it challenges, but just dealing with some issues. And you didn't have time to talk to me. And you didn't have time to talk to me because you were dealing with, probably, some issues with the kids. And, it was stressful, being able to hear your tone um, on the phone and me not being able to help, or on top of that, you not even having time to talk to me when I was calling you to check in or be able to share. And, I had to be put on hold um, while you were dealing with, what you were going through. And so that wasn't easy. So I chuckle because I recall one of those that you said, listen, I don't have time to talk to you right now. And that was almost like a slap in the face. Like, what do you mean you don't have time to talk to me? What's going on? Well, we'll call you back. Or it could
Yeah.
be on another situation where, I'm out with the boys right now. I don't have time to talk to you right now. We're doing this. Okay, what are y'all doing? Well, we'll call you back.
But can you
So,
imagine? It's just very similar to your work.
yeah.
You're in a meeting, you pick up the phone because you don't know if it's going to be something of importance. And then you realize, oh, my wife just wants to talk. Then you say, like, can I call you back later?
Hmm.
But the wife who's home with the children is picking up the phone too, like to figure out if there's an emergency, and also if it's not, like, I don't have time to talk to you right now, and I don't have time to explain. And so I think what is so important to making this thing work, to making one family work in two locations, is to make sure that each party is communicating well. And because this is a love letter to traveling dads, I took some time to really think about questions I would like for you all to ask your wives. And without fear, without judgment of what they say back, just with an open ear to see, to hear what it is your wife needs, wants, or doesn't want. Because if you can tap into that, she will feel more connected and feel like she's not just making sacrifices because her husband just wants to get another job, like wants to move up in his career, but that they're doing this together and they're doing it with the kids and for the kids. And so I am going to share those questions with you all. So I want you to grab a pen or a piece of paper and jot these down and really just ask one question a month, not even every day or every week, because I want you to take your spouse's responses in and figure out what you can do without them having to tell you exactly what to do. Because what we know for sure are, generally speaking, men are fixers. But sometimes, it would be helpful if women can share with their husbands what indeed is their challenge. And then the husband just does something to respond to it without saying, I'm going to fix it, I'm going to do this, or that you should do this. So are you ready? I am about to reveal the questions that you should consider asking your wife. Number one, excuse me, this is the question you're going to ask your wife, and it says, if I could do anything to lighten your load, what would it be? And just pause for a minute and give your wife some time and space to answer it. Then question number two is, I want you to acknowledge that you see what she's doing. So you can start off by saying, I see how hard you work to keep the kids on track. What one thing can I do for you? And you let her know, I really want you to answer that question. If you can't answer it right then, send it to her again in a text message or an email, and then respond to it, not by writing back, but actually doing what is requested. Now, I know many of you traveling dads will think, I'm not going to ask that question because she's going to want me to come home like immediately. But I tell you, after working with families over and over again, I have come to know that when I give a person a question and they're reluctant to ask it, and they finally do, generally speaking, the answer is not the one that they were fearing. So I just dare you to go and ask those two questions. And here's the last one. What you want to ask your wife, what do you want me to do more of with the kids? What do you want me to do more of with the kids? Because again, the wife is thinking like, I have to do all of this by myself. And just let them know that even if it seems unreasonable to them, whatever they want, just go ahead and ask you, and you'll see what you can do. All right, so they don't have to figure out, they don't have to tell you how to do it, but you're just going to find a way to try to do it a little bit. So honey, what do you do? Have you ever asked me any of these questions?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah.
Which one?
And let me say, I've had a lot of coaching that I've had to learn these as well. And, what can I do to support you? what can I do to improve my relationship with the kids? Um, you know, the thing about
Can I
your
stop you there? Because again, I want our listeners to understand that might be just a little too broad. What can I do to support you? Like, no, what can I do to what can I take off of your plate? What can I do to lighten your load? Because that acknowledges that I see how hard you are working. And I can hear in your voice you are overwhelmed. So I want to be very specific, and I think, what was the next question you asked? Uh, I don't quite
what can I
remember.
do more of with the kids?
Okay, what can, no, you said, I don't remember. But again, I think I want our listeners to understand is that being really specific and asking those questions and letting her respond any way she wants is going to be key. So yes, you have probably asked me those questions, but in asking it in a general way, I may not and probably did not recognize just how interested you were in helping me. I'm just thinking you're just saying something. Yeah. So do you think, how do you think I could have helped better draw you in to be helpful in raising the kids? Yeah, that's my question. How, if you were struggling and thinking about were you actually succeeding and being a good dad, what could I have done differently to invite you in and support you as a dad?
I, I think you have done that well. And I think, as I indicated from the beginning, that, we're parents, and parents is not a one person game. We both have roles, and especially with fatherhood, and knowing at times that even, you know, moms who are at home while we're away are playing two roles. And so I think you've done a great job in helping communicate to me on how I can be better and supportive in my role, or what I could do better, especially with our sons. And so knowing those individual roles from both sides, you as a mother and being at home while I'm away has been helpful. And I think, that eyesight, that that option that you see from that side really has been helpful for me to be able to jump in and improve upon those areas where I was not very strong, or was not very much engaged. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean,
Mm.
again, what you're saying is I kind of drew you in and
Yeah.
gave you opportunities to know where you could fit in, where you could be of a help, and where I needed help.
Parenting is a co-partnership, it's a co-leadership of raising our kids, keeping our family intact, and making sure that um, we are advancing forward together. And I can't I can't envision doing this without you. And I can't envision seeing, I think, as I alluded to earlier, seeing my family suffer because I'm away. And so me constantly engaging you as my wife, as my co-partner in this raising of our sons, of our children together, is important, because I want to carry my weight more. And I don't want you to carry more weight because I'm away. And it's important for me to make sure that I can lighten your load, or I can find creative ways to make sure that you are strengthened as you take every step going forward while I'm away. This journey can definitely be overwhelming when you're by yourself. And I don't ever want you to feel that you are alone in this process and I'm not there.
So much, honey. I think I want to bring up a point where that you made earlier, where you said, and it may not be on this video, but you did say today that, you know, that I did ask you questions or got you to understand to ask me questions about how I was feeling. But you said something important. You said, well, Sharoya, that was not just your responsibility. It was my responsibility as well to
Mhm.
look and see what was overwhelming you and try to see if I could be of some help. And I really appreciate you saying that. I didn't even know you felt that way. You kind of transitioned from me trying to help you to see what I was going through to seeing it for yourself.
Mhm.
And I think that is so important. So, honey, I just imagine this video being seen by a dad who's somewhere in a hotel feeling down and out. And like I said, last time he called home, he got a lashing of the tongue like, you need to do more, but really didn't know what to do. And so I want you to just take a moment to encourage them before we sign off.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to encourage men and just first to say we're all human and we all have our struggles, but there's nothing more important than our family. And the struggles of being a husband, being a father, being a provider, conducting all the roles that we do is not easy. The easiest thing that we can do is give up. But I think as men, we are programmed, to continue the fight. And there's no more important fight than fighting for the stability of our family and our children. And so I just want to encourage you um, to never give up. If you need to take a pause, communicate that to your wife, that you need to take a pause for a minute. But also, there's no important measure than like a huddle, because even if you take that pause and you may be thinking that, what can I do? What can I do? But you need to be able to listen to your spouse to be able to say how that I can turn into me being a better support and provider, not necessarily provider, but provider in emotional, not because we all go out and make money and provide for our families, but the emotional capacity of contributing to our family's wholeness. And so, again, don't give up. Don't sit in this struggle by yourself. And there may be other men who are listening that have been through this, been there, done that, and I thank you, Sharoya, for putting on this podcast and providing this opportunity for us to be able to share. But this has been a great opportunity to be able to share some of my experiences. And I think in addition to not giving up, but tuning into programs like this where you can be able to hear it, because sometimes we don't hear it, we don't know, and when we don't know what we don't know. And so do listen and do reach out, do look for support, because it's out there in the form of this podcast and the parent coach, Ms. Sharoya Ham.
Right, honey. Thank you so much for your willingness to share your story, to encourage other dads to keep moving on. And so this is the end of this love letter to all of you traveling dads. Take care.